Have you ever felt like this life wasn't your first? Maybe it's a dream, a city you've never visited, yet you know every turn. Maybe it's a scent, a voice, a stranger's eyes, and something inside you says, I remember. But how? From where? Some people carry a sadness that has no name. It isn't from heartbreak. It isn't from loss. It's older, quieter. It lives beneath the surface of everyday things, beneath smiles, beneath goals, beneath the noise of the world. It's a soft ache, not enough to stop your life, but just enough to make you wonder. You might feel it when the world celebrates and you feel nothing, or when you sit in silence and it feels like a reunion, or when you look at the sky and feel like it's calling you home. No one taught you how to feel this way, and you can't explain it to anyone. Not really. That's because this isn't something you learned. This is something your soul remembers, a memory from somewhere deeper than thought. A whisper you've always heard but never had words for, until... Now this isn't just emotion, it's a message, one that comes when the soul is ready to wake up. So pause for a moment, breathe, and ask yourself honestly, what if these feelings weren't random? What if they're echoes from another life you once lived? She was only 9 years old when she told her mother, "This isn't my first time being your daughter." Her mom laughed, thought it was cute, a child's imagination. But the girl didn't smile. She looked serious. She said, "You died before, remember? In the fire. I waited for you." No one had ever spoken to her about past lives, no TV show, no book. And yet she described a village, a church bell, a wooden house on a hill, details that didn't exist in her current world. That girl grew up, became a quiet teenager. In history class, she felt drawn to places no one else cared about. Ancient temples, forgotten empires. She spoke phrases in foreign tongues she never learned. She cried watching black and white war footage, though no one in her family had ever fought. And every once in a while, she'd look in the mirror and whisper, "I miss someone I haven't met yet." Have you ever felt something like that? That sense that you're older than your body? That life is familiar in a strange, impossible way? That certain people feel like home without saying a word? It's not always dramatic. It's subtle. But it lingers, like a memory trying to find its voice. Many people feel this and silence it. They bury it under the noise of real life. But what if you didn't silence it this time? What if these feelings aren't illusions, but invitations? Invitations to remember that your story didn't begin here, that your soul has wandered through time, that you are not just a product of your childhood or your culture or your DNA. You are something much older. So now the real question is, if your soul didn't begin with this life, how many lives has it already lived? You've probably felt it. That strange, quiet feeling that you're not new to this world. You can't prove it. You can't explain it. But deep down, something inside you whispers, "This isn't my first time here." So what does that feel like? Let's not rush to explain. Let's just notice the signs, the 5 quiet truths many old souls carry without even knowing. You feel older than your age, not just mature, but old in your bones. You look at people your age and think, why do I feel like I've lived so much more than this? Sometimes you feel closer to silence than small talk. You crave meaning, not distraction. While others chase trends, you hunger for truth. You'd rather sit in silence than waste time in empty noise. Your soul leans toward ancient things, books, wisdom, ruins. You're sensitive in ways you can't explain. Crowds drain you. Violence unsettles you. You can feel when someone enters the room without seeing them. It's as if your senses stretch beyond what's physical. You carry emotions that don't belong to your story. There are days you wake up with grief you can't trace, or fears you've never earned. You sense you've been through things, deep things that your current life can't account for. You feel a kind of homesickness, but not for a place. You miss something, someone, somewhere. But when you try to name it, it slips through your fingers like fog. You don't need to understand these signs, not yet. What matters is, you've felt them. And if you have, then maybe, just maybe, you're not here for the first time. And everything you're about to remember is something your soul already knows. People don't always know how to describe it, but they feel it. There's something about you. You walk into a room and the energy shifts, just a little. Not because you speak loudly, not because you demand attention, but because your presence carries something different. Strangers open up to you. Children stare. Animals follow you with their eyes. You don't ask for this, but it happens, again and again. Maybe it's your eyes. They're not just looking, they're remembering. There's depth there, like the ocean. People have told you that, haven't they? That your eyes seem older than your face, or maybe it's the way you pause when the world rushes. You don't believe in living on autopilot. You're not interested in the surface of things. You're always reaching for what's beneath, what's real. You feel things deeply. Too deeply, some might say. A movie, a song, a sentence can shake you. But you wouldn't trade your depth for anything shallow. Because even your pain feels honest. And then there's your curiosity. Not the kind that wants to be clever, but the kind that wants to be free. You're not chasing answers for the sake of winning. You're chasing truth because your soul remembers what it feels like to be whole. You're not here to impress. You're here to remember. You've always known there was more than this world was showing you, and you've always felt a quiet urgency to find it, even if you don't know what it is yet. You know it's calling. That feeling? It's not random, it's recognition. Your soul has walked a long path, and now it's reaching back through time to show you, this life is not the beginning, it's the remembering. Old soul. You've heard the phrase before, maybe even used it to describe yourself. But what does it actually mean? It's not just about being mature. It's not about liking classical music or reading poetry. And it's definitely not about acting older than your age. An old soul is a being whose consciousness has lived through many lifetimes. They've worn many faces, spoken many languages, loved and lost in centuries you can't remember. But your soul does. You were a mother, a soldier, a monk, a wanderer, a teacher, a healer, a seeker of truth. And in each life you learned something, not facts, not skills, but truths. Spiritual impressions that live in the deepest layer of your being, beyond personality, beyond memory. That's what makes someone an old soul. It's not about intellect. It's about depth. It's about how your energy feels. Grounded, calm, magnetic. It's about how your heart recognizes suffering and still chooses to be soft. By contrast, a young soul isn't less valuable, just newer. Young souls are exploring life for the first few times. They chase experience, identity, recognition, achievement. They're learning how the world works, building ego, forming selfhood. There's beauty in that too. But old souls, they're not chasing anymore. They're remembering. They crave meaning, not noise. Connection, not performance. Stillness, not stimulation. They've seen kingdoms rise and fall. They've watched love bloom and vanish. They've died and returned, over and over, until truth became more important than comfort. If you feel like you've never fit into the patterns of this world, if you feel like your values are out of sync with the noise around you, you might not be broken. You might just be ancient. There's a sadness inside you that no one seems to understand, not even you. It doesn't come from any one event, no single heartbreak, no one trauma. It's just There, lingering, heavy, old. Sometimes it shows up as a fear of water, of fire, of falling, of being left behind. Fears that make no logical sense. You were never in danger, not in this life. So why does your body tremble like it remembers? Sometimes it appears as grief, sudden and sharp. You're standing in line, folding laundry, brushing your teeth, and tears well up. No reason, no warning, just this ache in your chest like something, or someone, is missing. You might even feel guilt, deep, unexplainable guilt, as if you failed someone long ago, as if you broke a promise you can't remember making. Psychologists might call these irrational. But your soul doesn't speak in logic. It speaks in echoes. It speaks in fragments of lifetimes you've lived, lost, and left behind. These are not weaknesses. They are not signs of dysfunction. They are soul scars, remnants of experiences that shaped you across lifetimes, and they show up now because you're finally strong enough to feel them, to acknowledge them, to heal them. An old soul often carries karmic residue, unresolved energies from the past. A warrior who never forgave himself for the lives he took. A healer who watched her village burn. A lover who died with words left unsaid. These stories may not be in your conscious memory, but they live in your energy field. That's why you might be drawn to certain types of music, rituals, spiritual practices, without knowing why. Why a foreign language feels like home. Why you've always felt older than your body. Your soul has been carrying this weight not to punish you, but to invite you into remembrance. Because healing doesn't start with forgetting. It starts with recognizing. You are not broken. You are layered. You are whole, with ancient grief, ancient wisdom, and ancient grace all intertwined. You don't need to understand every scar to begin releasing it. You just need to listen when your soul speaks, and it speaks in sadness, in stillness, in longings you can't name. So when the heaviness returns, don't run. Sit with it. Ask it who it used to be. You may be surprised at what it remembers. How can you tell if your soul has lived before? There's no certificate, no tattoo on your skin. But there are signs, quiet, undeniable ones. Not in your memories, but in your tendencies. Not in your thoughts, but in your very way of being. Here are 6 signs you've been here before. You have wisdom that defies your experience. You speak like someone who's seen the rise and fall of empires. Even as a child, you gave advice that surprised adults. You didn't read it in a book. You didn't hear it on a podcast. It came from somewhere deeper, from memory that's older than this lifetime. You experience strong déjà vu. You visit a place for the first time and know exactly what's around the corner. You meet someone and feel like you've known them for centuries. It's not coincidence. It's your soul recognizing familiar timelines. You feel deeply connected to certain cultures, eras, or places. Maybe you're obsessed with ancient Egypt, or feel at home watching black and white wartime films, or speak a language you've never learned. These affinities often point to lives once lived and loved. You learn spiritual concepts effortlessly. While others struggle to grasp meditation or energy work, it comes naturally to you. Not because you're better, because your soul has practiced for lifetimes. It's like muscle memory, but for the spirit. You have phobias or fascinations, with no rational origin. A fear of drowning, though you've never swum. An obsession with swords, lighthouses, or temples. Past lives often leave emotional imprints, unprocessed echoes waiting to be felt and released. You have a strong pull toward healing, helping, or guiding others. You didn't choose it. It chose you. People open up to you without reason. You find yourself calming chaos, sensing pain others don't see. This is the mark of a soul who's done this work before. These signs don't appear to prove something. They appear to remind you that you are not just your birth certificate or your childhood. You are not just this moment in time. You are a soul with roots that go deeper than memory and wider than one lifetime. And once you start noticing these signs, something begins to shift. You stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and you start asking, what am I here to remember? Your soul has lived before, and sometimes it remembers, not in words, not in clear stories, but in pieces, in moments, in dreams, in the spaces between logic and silence. The dreams that don't feel like dreams. You're walking through a city you've never visited, but you know every turn. You speak a language fluently, though you've never studied it. You're in a body that isn't yours, but somehow it still feels like home. These aren't ordinary dreams. They don't feel symbolic. They feel real. They stay with you for days, sometimes for years. They're not dreams. They're glimpses, windows into lives your soul once lived. They surface when your spirit is ready to remember. Talents that arrive without practice. You sit down at a piano for the first time, and your fingers know where to go. You sketch symbols from a culture you've never studied. You speak in a tone, a rhythm, that doesn't belong to your upbringing. It's not coincidence. It's not just talent. It's reawakening. You've done this before, maybe in a temple, maybe on a battlefield, maybe in silence, across centuries of devotion. Old souls often carry the fingerprints of their past lives in their gifts. They don't learn them, they uncover them. Places that feel like home. But shouldn't you arrive in a country you've never been to and feel an overwhelming emotion? You know the streets. You sense the rhythm of the people. You cry without knowing why. Sometimes your body remembers before your mind does. Architecture, weather, even the scent of the air can trigger something ancient. It's the soul saying, I've been here. I loved here. I lost something here. Not every place holds meaning, but when it does, you feel it in your bones. These memories don't come to confuse you. They come to guide you. You are not here to start from scratch. You are here to continue a journey that has already begun long ago. So the next time you dream in a different tongue, or feel lightning in your hands when you create, or cry in a city you've never known, don't dismiss it. Ask your soul, what are you trying to help me remember? Because the answer may change everything. Have you ever met someone for the first time, but felt like you've known them forever? You finished each other's sentences. You laughed like old friends, or cried like old lovers, and something in your heart whispered, finally. These are not accidents. These are soul connections, woven long before you were born. In the journey of many lives, we don't walk alone. We travel in soul groups, clusters of souls who reincarnate together, again and again. Sometimes as friends, sometimes as family, sometimes as lovers, or even rivals. Each time, we choose roles that help each other grow. Not because it's always easy, but because it's always meaningful. Soulmates. Not always romantic. Sometimes, they come to awaken you, sometimes to break you open, but always to return you to yourself. They feel like home, because they've been your home before. Karmic partners. They are not here to stay. They are here to teach, often intense, sometimes painful, but always purposeful. They mirror your unhealed wounds, so you can finally see them. Soul family. You recognize them by how safe you feel, how seen, how deeply you can be yourself. They are your mirrors, your memory keepers. When you meet them, your soul exhales. These bonds defy logic. You might meet someone across the world and feel more connected than to your own relatives. That's not fantasy, that's remembrance. So if someone makes your heart race or break or bloom, look beyond the surface, because chances are, you've known them before. So what if you want to remember more, not just feelings, not just fragments, but the stories behind the echoes? There are two powerful gateways the soul can walk through: past life regression and the Akashic records. Past life regression. Remembering through the subconscious in a quiet, safe space, guided by a trained practitioner, your conscious mind gently steps aside, and something deeper begins to speak. People often recall vivid scenes, holding a sword, dying in childbirth, watching the ocean from a ship that would never return. They speak names they don't recognize, cry for people they've never met, and feel emotions that don't belong to this lifetime. But strangely, they feel lighter afterward, as if something old finally released them. This isn't hypnosis in the Hollywood sense. It's more like opening a locked diary inside your soul. Even skeptics have emerged from regression with insights they couldn't explain, but couldn't deny. The Akashic Records, the library of your soul ancient traditions, speak of a field of energy that records every thought, action, and experience of every soul. The Akasha. Imagine it as a vast cosmic library, not made of books, but of vibration. Trained readers can access this space through prayer, meditation, or intuitive channeling. They don't predict your future. They help you understand your past, patterns, and the lessons behind them. Some hear words, some see images, some just feel truth unfold, and what they tell you often matches what your own soul already suspected, but never dared to voice. These tools are not for proving. They are for remembering, because sometimes to move forward we must look back, not with fear but with reverence. And when we do, the past stops haunting us and starts guiding us. There's a quiet knowing that lives in some people, a sense that they're not coming back, not in a bitter way, not because they've had enough of life, but because something inside them whispers, "You've learned what you came here to learn." Have you ever felt that way? Like you're no longer here to build or chase but to release, to forgive, to complete? Old souls who are near the end of their reincarnation cycle often feel a strange detachment from this world. Not depression, not apathy, but a spiritual distance. As if they're standing in a room that used to be home, but now feels borrowed. Here are a few signs you may be nearing the end. You feel a deep urgency to heal, forgive, and let go. You're no longer interested in being right. You care more about peace than pride. You want closure, not control. You don't fear death, but you respect it. You sense that death is not an end, but a return. You don't obsess over what happens after. You simply trust that your soul knows the way. You're uninterested in material success or status, not because you reject it, but because it feels irrelevant. Your joy now comes from simplicity, service, and truth. You're drawn to solitude, silence, and sacred stillness, not to escape, but to listen, to something deeper than thought, a voice that isn't yours, but feels like home. You carry no desire to start over. There's no longing to come back and try again, not because you're tired, but because you've tasted the lesson enough times. Spiritual traditions speak of karmic completion, a soul who has resolved its contracts, burned through its debts, and no longer needs the classroom of earth. These souls don't seek escape. They seek integration, and when they leave, they don't die. They dissolve like mist returning to ocean. But this isn't about knowing for sure. It's about listening. Because if your soul has been whispering, "This is the last time," then perhaps it's time to live like it, not in fear, but in full presence, with no loops left unclosed, and nothing left unsaid. You've been looking for answers, in books, in people, in places you hoped would feel like home. But nothing ever quite fits, does it? That's because the answer isn't out there. It never was. It's in the way your chest tightens when a truth is spoken. It's in the tears you can't explain. It's in the silence that makes you feel more alive than any conversation ever could. Your soul already knows. It knows who you've been. It knows what you've carried. It knows why you've returned, not to become more, but to remember that you were never less. You are not here to collect more knowledge. You are here to release the lies you believed along the way. You are not broken. You are layered. You are the living memory of every lesson learned, every love lost, every truth rediscovered. Your soul is not seeking answers. It's seeking reconnection. So if you still don't know how many lives you've lived, that's okay. You don't need a number. You need presence. You need stillness. You need trust. Because the one who's asking the question is the same. One who already holds the answer, and maybe, just maybe, that answer has been waiting for you to remember who you truly are. If something in you stirred during this video, if a memory flickered, a tear welled, or a silence felt more meaningful than any word, that wasn't by accident. That was your soul, remembering. And now, we'd love to hear from you. Not your theories, not your explanations, just something simple, something real. In the comments, write one thing you love most right now, anything. A sunset, your pet's eyes, the sound of wind through trees. A line from this video that stayed with you. Why? Because love is memory. And when we name what we love, we come home to who we are. Your comment isn't just a reply. It's a recognition. It's your soul saying, I'm here, I'm awake, I remember. And if you felt seen in this video, please like it. Share it with someone who carries the same quiet questions. And if you'd like more soul-deep conversations like this, subscribe. This is only the beginning. Thank you for walking this path with us. We see you, we feel you, and most of all, we remember with you.